Hello, my name is Brittany Strumpf, and for Speech 4, I have chosen to do the process of criminal investigation. So let's jump right into it. First off, my goal is to teach you, as my audience, what the process of a criminal investigation is. Number one, who conducts criminal investigations? So we have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is the FBI, and it's intelligence-driven and threat-focused national security organization with both intelligence and law enforcement responsibilities. The second one we have is the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, used to enforce controlled substance laws and regulations and work with law enforcement to solve drug-related crimes. The third one we have is the ATF, or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They are typically responsible for investigations and prevention of federal offenses involving the unlawful use, manufacture, and possession of firearms and explosives. They are responsible for acts of arson, bombings, illegal trafficking of alcohol, and tobacco. The next one we have is the USSS, United States Secret Service. That is an agency under the Department of Homeland Security, which is charged with conducting criminal investigations and protecting U.S. political leaders and their families. The last one I have is Homeland Security Investigation, the DHS or the HSI. They investigate and disrupt and dismantle transnational criminal organizations and terrorist networks that threaten or seek to exploit the customs and immigration laws of the U.S. Most of these ones are pretty familiar for everybody. Maybe not all of them, but most of them I already knew. So the next slide I have is 3 levels of investigation. The first one is the scene of the crime. The scene of the crime is exponentially important to the process of investigation because it gets the investigation going along on the right track, and it will make the process of investigating a crime scene a lot smoother. The second one is the lab. After investigation, the lab will take all the evidence, study, test, and relay back to the investigative team, and it includes all DNA evidence, items found, and many, many more. The third and final is the courtroom. It is the finale of the criminal investigation process. It's where they find and charge suspects. This is where a trial or no trial will occur. And on the right-hand side of the screen, I have a picture of our previous President of the United States, Donald Trump, testifying for himself in court. This slide is especially important. It is the steps in the process of conducting a criminal investigation. These steps are all provided and given to us by Campbellsville University. So number 1, we have identify the scene. This is where you locate the main point or victim in a scene, if that's the case. You also establish a perimeter large enough to contain any of the relevant evidence. Number 2 is when you establish your security and media control. This is where the tape around the crime scene comes along. You want to avoid unnecessary tampering of evidence, and it avoids risk of evidence being ruined, and the whole investigation can be thrown out of whack. Number 3 is create a plan and communicate with your other employers. You determine the type of crime. You identify only the threats to evidence, which could be weather or any other thing that could be tampering with evidence out of your control. Another one is you want to consider additional resources, if any are needed, like a coroner, anything of that sort. And then this is also where you communicate with your team on the scene to establish what you're going to do next. 4 is identify potential evidence. This is where they capture photographs, you locate anywhere that may contain evidence pertaining to the crime. Number 5, you document and process the scene, which this is where you begin processing the scene with a plan devised by your team. You collect all the evidence. Number 6, you conduct a walkthrough to ensure that nothing is missed. It's more than likely that once you leave the scene of a crime, you aren't going to be able to return, so you want to ensure that nothing is missed during that time. Finally, number 7 is record and preserve evidence. There is an inventory log to account for all evidence that's collected. There's thorough descriptions for all the evidence that's there, and you also avoid anyone tampering with any evidence because each person has to sign in and out evidence when they take it to test it or whatever the case may be. The importance of following the steps in a criminal investigation. Essentially, it's no matter what the crime is committed, the 7 steps are always followed, no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's a robbery or anything worse than that. The 7 steps of conducting a criminal investigation are extremely crucial in keeping a strict schedule to find any suspects, because it puts time limits on everything, and you only have a set amount of time to find people immediately. And if only one step goes wrong, it can throw the entire investigation and go a totally different direction. If the 7 steps were done in a different order, it wouldn't be completed as quick, and evidence could potentially be ruined if the steps are done incorrectly. What happens to evidence after it is documented? The best evidence will be sent to a forensic lab for testing. A test called presumptive testing will be conducted to determine the most valuable evidence according to an article provided by forensicsciencesimplified.org. In today's age, we can test most evidence right at the scene because of a lot of new technologies. And over on the right-hand side of the slide, I have 2 pictures of an actual lab testing DNA. So the evidence testing is complete. What do we do now? This is where you see investigators conduct interviews with potential witnesses, anyone involved with the crime, or anything telling them who may be the suspect. And potential suspects will also be brought in for questioning, and the interrogation portion of the investigation will begin. If a suspect turns out to be the perpetrator, they will then be moved on to be charged and sentenced to the crime. Sentencing. Depending on the crime, suspects may or may not receive a trial. In criminal cases, the judge is the one who decides the sentence for a criminal, and in federal cases, a jury is the one who decides. But there's always not a jury present in a trial, and some criminals do not receive a trial. And if a criminal doesn't receive a trial, that is mainly because there is overwhelming or obvious evidence against them, and there's no need to waste anybody's time for a big trial. And on the right-hand side here, I have a picture of a courtroom. So the process of criminal investigation goes way beyond my PowerPoint. There are so many factors that go into it, and it is because of the 7 steps of conducting an investigation that it goes smoothly. The investigation process is very detailed, and there are lots of aspects that go into it, and investigators have done it the same almost always. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my topic for Speech 4.